It was one of those quiet, uneventful afternoons where the world seemed to be moving in slow motion. The kind of day where everything feels predictable, and the silence that surrounds you is only broken by the occasional sound of a door creaking or the hum of the fridge. I had just finished cleaning up the kitchen, the day's chores done, when I heard the front door open. My stepfather, Tom, had just come back from his run to the store. I didn't expect much. He was usually in and out quickly, just grabbing what he needed before retreating back to his study, where he'd spend hours working on whatever project he had at the time. But that afternoon, there was a shift. The way he stepped into the house, the way he called my name, it felt different. "Hey, are you home?" Tom's voice echoed through the hall, and I could hear him coming down the hallway toward the kitchen. "Yeah, just finishing up," I called out, wiping my hands on a dish towel, trying to shake off the feeling of unease creeping up my spine. There was nothing obvious, nothing to explain the tightness in my chest, but I couldn't deny it. Something was different. When he entered the kitchen, he looked more serious than usual. Tom was always a calm, collected person, never one to wear his emotions on his sleeve. But today, there was something in his eyes, something I couldn't place. "You good?" I asked, noticing the way his gaze lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary. "Everything okay?" He hesitated, and I saw him take a deep breath as if preparing himself for something difficult. "Actually, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about," he said, his voice lower than usual. "Something I've been thinking about for a while now." I stopped drying the dishes, suddenly feeling a knot form in my stomach. I wasn't sure why, but his tone, his words, there was a weight to them. It wasn't like Tom to get so serious. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound calm, though inside I was anything but. Tom looked at me for a long moment, his brow furrowing, like he was searching for the right words. "I know this might sound strange, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable," he began, his voice trailing off, and for a second, I wondered if I should tell him not to go any further. But something stopped me. My curiosity got the best of me. "What is it?" I asked, my voice steady despite the unease building in me. He took a step closer, and I could feel the distance between us closing. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it felt like everything was suddenly shifting, like the ground beneath me was no longer as solid as it had been moments before. "I've been thinking a lot about our relationship," he said, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "And I think I need to ask you something." Something I didn't expect to ask, but here we are. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. I didn't know what was coming next, but the way he was looking at me, the way his words hung in the air, made my heart race. What did he mean by our relationship? Was this about something normal, or was this going to be something I wasn't prepared for? "I need to ask you for something, and I'm not sure how to go about it," Tom said, his voice quieter now, as if he was trying to ease into whatever was coming next. "I've been feeling conflicted for a while now, and I think you're the only person who might understand." I felt my breath catch in my throat. The tension in the room was palpable now, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be an easy conversation. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, but loud enough for him to hear. He paused for a moment, his eyes searching mine like he was trying to gauge my reaction. Then, he finally spoke again, his words slow and deliberate. "I don't know how to explain this, but I need you to help me with something, and I think you're the only one who can. It's personal, and it's a lot to ask, but I don't know who else to turn to." His words hit me like a jolt of electricity, and I felt my chest tighten as a wave of uncertainty washed over me. What could he possibly need from me? What kind of help was he asking for? I didn't know what he meant, but I could tell that whatever it wasn't something I could brush off. "What do you need, Tom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though my mind was racing. Tom looked at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, and then he took a deep breath. "I need your trust," he said quietly. "I need you to understand that I've been struggling with something, and I don't know how to deal with it. But I need your help." The air felt thicker now. I didn't know what this was, but I knew it was something that would change everything. The weight of his words hung in the air, leaving me breathless. I stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. My mind raced, searching for something to latch onto, some explanation that made sense of the bizarre situation I had found myself in. But nothing came. Instead, my heart pounded harder, and my palms began to sweat. Tom stood in front of me, his face serious, the usual warmth in his eyes replaced by something darker, something I didn't recognize. My chest tightened as I realized that whatever he was about to ask of me, it was going to be something I couldn't just brush aside. "I don't understand, Tom," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, trying to keep the panic in check. "What do you need from me?" He took another step closer, and I instinctively took a small step back, my body suddenly hyper-aware of the distance between us. But Tom didn't stop. He kept moving until he was within arm's reach. The space between us was charged, and I could feel my breath shallow, as if the air itself had thickened. I need you to help me face something," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Something that I've been carrying for a long time. It's a burden, and it's getting harder to bear. I don't want to do this alone anymore." I felt a sickening twist in my stomach, and I wanted to pull away, to walk out of the room and pretend I hadn't heard any of this. But my feet stayed rooted to the floor, my body frozen in place. "What are you talking about?" I forced the words out, but they felt foreign on my tongue. "What kind of burden?" Tom's eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of vulnerability. He reached out, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his hand hovering near mine. "I've been struggling with my feelings," he confessed, the words spilling out in a rush. "Feelings I can't control anymore. They've been growing, and it's become too much. I've tried to fight it, but I can't. And I need you to help me make sense of it." I was paralyzed. The words he was saying were incomprehensible to me. What feelings was he talking about? And why was he confiding in me like this? I had always seen him as a father figure, someone I could rely on, someone who was stable. But now, he was asking me for something I wasn't prepared to give. "I can't help you with this," I said, my voice breaking. "You need to talk to someone else, someone who knows how to handle this. I don't know what's going on in your head, but I can't be the one to fix it." Tom's expression faltered, and for a moment, I thought I saw him retreat. But then he stepped closer, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity one couldn't escape. "I don't want anyone else. I want you," he said softly, his voice barely a whisper. "You're the one I trust, and I don't know how else to deal with this." I couldn't breathe. His words were like a slap to the face, and I felt the room spin as I tried to comprehend what was happening. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. This wasn't how family was supposed to function. "No, Tom," I said firmly, my voice shaking with both fear and anger. "This isn't normal. I don't know what you're feeling, but this is wrong. Whatever you're going through, you need to seek help from someone else. I'm not the person you can talk to about this." He looked at me with a mixture of frustration and desperation, as if he didn't understand why I was pushing him away. "Please," he said, his voice strained. "You're the only one I trust. I don't know how to make this stop. You have to understand that I'm not asking for something crazy. I just need you to be there for me." The room felt suffocating. I could feel my own anxiety rising, the walls closing in around me. I wanted to leave, to escape, but I knew I couldn't. I had to make it clear that this conversation wasn't one I was willing to continue. "I'm not going to help you with this," I said firmly, though my voice was laced with emotion. "You need professional help, Tom. This isn't something I can be part of." His face hardened, and I saw something flicker behind his eyes. It wasn't anger, but something far more complex, disappointment, maybe, or perhaps something darker. He took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging, and for a moment, I thought he was going to argue. But he didn't. "Fine," he said, his voice cold now. "I understand." Without another word, he turned and walked toward the door, his steps slow and deliberate. I stood there, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me like a thick fog. The silence in the room was deafening. He didn't look back as he left, and I didn't try to stop him. I sank onto the couch, my heart still racing, my mind spinning. I had no idea what I had just experienced. I knew I had made the right decision, but it didn't make it any easier. it didn't make the weight of what had just happened go away. This was a turning point, a moment that would change everything. And though I didn't know what the future held, I knew one thing for sure: whatever happened next, I could never forget what had just transpired between us. The distance between us would never be the same. And for the first time, I realized that the silence that followed wasn't just a reflection of the room around me. It was a silence I would carry with me for a long, long time.